Throughout history, great thinkers, movements, and philosophies have inspired progress. But human nature also has this tendency to form tight groups, seek certainty, and elevate leaders. But then something shifts. The idea stops being something you use and it becomes something you are. That's when an ideology can turn into a cult.
I think there's this idea that you are nothing without this prophet.
You should be praying that you will be given to a husband who will prove faithful to the end.
It's the cult. I mean, it's the cult of cults. It's the cult of truth.
And my parents were in the Heaven's Gate cult. My wife was Yvonne.
What happened to my brother?
That all hope was lost.
This sense of betrayal, and literally asking the question to myself,
It's devastating to this very day.
It ends with the fade to black.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
It ends also with silence.
My name is Floria. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. Come with me as we explore the ideology to cult pipeline and all the different cult types that are out there. This will be an ongoing series, which I will be splitting up into different videos. 2 to 3 videos will be available right now, and then some more will be available next week with some side tangent videos that I'll link into this series, cult types and their ideologies. I'm trying something new with the recent 2026 algorithm changes in YouTube. And while we're on the topic of the algorithm, don't forget to like, share, comment. Commenting helps the most, and hyping this video. Okay, let's get into this. Disclaimers and reminders. As I said, this series aims to explore all the different ideologies that create the different cult types and how they become corrupted to become a cult. And to be clear, not all ideologies become cults. Most are just frameworks, and a healthy framework can handle disagreement, boundaries, accountability, and so forth. The shift happens when the ideology stops being a tool and starts becoming an identity system. That's when you see things like curiosity gets replaced with certainty. Belonging comes with strings attached. Criticism gets framed as an attack. And more recently, social media becomes the propaganda machine. Because in the age of influencers and online communities, social media doesn't just spread belief, it spreads identity. And so I want to add an aspect of reviewing social media as well with all the different cult types. A quick note before we get further into this video though, some examples I'm going to show do involve real trauma, real victims, and real harm. This isn't just curiosity or entertainment. I want to handle this with care and respect for the people affected and the families and communities who can be re-victimized by how other people tell their stories, which is a big reason why I've been wanting to cover actually some more stuff about crime, cults, and murders, so that we can talk about how stories are being covered incorrectly. But as I move more into this cult and crime content, I've been thinking a lot about how these topics get framed. I want to keep the human side at the center, no sensationalizing, just facts about it, right? And that's sort of my goal with this series where I'm going to be working through some of this stuff. This is why we're focusing on the foundations and dynamics first today. It's so I can approach real cases with more clarity and understanding, because the word cult isn't simple. It's different structures creating different outcomes, and not every group starts out intending to harm somebody. Cult-like systems don't recruit stupid people, they recruit the needs of human beings. Belonging, certainty, identity, relief, control, and status. These needs are universal, and when a system meets all of them at once, it can feel stabilizing, especially in chaotic times, which, the world is kind of in a weird spot right now. So it's a dangerous time for a lot of people if like a cult shows up on your front door. These environments also rarely start out extreme. They usually escalate over time, and leaving gets harder as your relationship and identity get tied more into the group. Part of what we're exploring is how any of us can slide into these dynamics. Critical thinking and learning the patterns and types of cults, this will be key in recognizing it, whether it's now or in the future. You never know when you may need this information. One last thing, I am not a doctor, I do not have a psychology degree, but I have worked with some cult busters and learned from them. History of the word cult. Most people don't actually know the origin of the word cult. Originally, it didn't mean dangerous, brainwashing group. In ancient context, a cult was simply a system of worship, ritual, devotion, usually centered around a deity or a public figure of some sort. It was a neutral, descriptive term used much like how we use the term religion or belief system nowadays. That's what cult originally stood for, in its original context, that is. Over time, modern usage shifted. The word has turned into something more negative. Further research into cults over the decades have found a lot of nuance, though, to this setup. While there are many different types of cults, which is what originally interested me to research for this video, I have noticed that they all start with an ideology, often ones that sound genuine and good. So that raises the bigger question: how do ideas turn into systems that cause real harm? Because ideas themselves aren't automatically dangerous. The danger is what happens when ideas become identity. Identity becomes loyalty, and loyalty becomes something that punishes doubt. And as well, quick note before I jump into chapter 1, I just want to briefly cover the format here of this video. So what we're going to be doing is I want to review all the different types of cults, like the sub-classifications that are out there. Under each one, I'm going to describe it, explain to you, and under each one, I'm going to talk about the ideology. Like, what was the good idea that this type often starts with? And then I'm going to point out when it turns, how it shifts into control and harm. Then we're going to take a look at a couple case studies per type. These are brief examples, they're not deep dives, so if you want to look into them more, you can take a look and do your own research, but 100% not a deep dive. Then I'm going to finish off each type of cult with the social media tie-in, so we can discuss how social media affects this type in today's day and age. Cult dynamics don't always look like compounds anymore, like the physical compounds. A lot of it does happen online through content, communities, and algorithms. So it is easier to miss and easier to normalize. And that is also why I believe that this matters as a topic, and especially to discuss how it is on social media, because a lot of people don't know that this is going on. All right, let's get into discussing our first type. Chapter 1, High Control Group. A high control group, this is our classic cult, control over people. When most people say the word cult, this is usually what they mean. It's usually the example that comes to mind. A bonded environment with rules, punishments, and a structure slowly takes ownership of your own decisions. You no longer have autonomy when you're in a group like this. High control groups don't always look like things you would see on TV, especially nowadays too. They look like self-improvement program, a spiritual community, a grief support group, a mentorship or coaching ecosystem, a family that isn't your real family that gets you. Between social media and the outside world, we're in a really ripe environment for a lot of cults to be popping up in this sense. Isn't about control, it's usually shaped around hope. And this is their ideology, the good idea they start with. Like I said, high control groups rarely begin with dangerous beliefs. They usually begin with something genuinely good. They offer a solution to a real human need, such as growth, healing, meaning, safety, purpose, and community. These aren't stupid needs. They aren't useless needs. They're actually really important and very normal to human nature. Often they can be urgent needs. Many people encounter these environments during vulnerable moments in their lives. So the ideology here usually starts with helping and caring. The initial meaning behind the group can be genuinely beneficial in healthy environments. However, this ideology is a high risk for a cult to form or to be planned out and built around. Because yes, some are pre-planned. A lot of them, though, just kind of fall into being a cult through, I guess, greed and whatnot. So anyway, the group doesn't feel like a trap at first. It feels like relief and answers. The early messaging is almost always positive. You'll hear things such as, "We're helping you become your best self." Or other people don't get it, but we do. If you've ever felt misunderstood or felt like you don't belong, the last one hits hard, especially for people who are neurodivergent. They tend to pull us in with that sort of verbiage. But eventually comes the quiet shift. The group starts moving from helping you to governing you. Not with one big demand, but a slow series of small demands that feel reasonable in the context at the time. Whereas healthy frameworks, they allow for questioning, revision, boundaries, accountability. Instead, high control systems, they turn ideas into identity, and identity then becomes obedience. And that brings us to techniques. How does this ideology turn into control? So high control groups tend to build their control across a few major categories. The goal isn't just to make you believe something. The goal is to make the group the center of your reality. Number 1, we have information control. This is where they control what counts as real. They'll say things like, outsiders don't understand us. You'll start seeing approved sources versus forbidden sources for news, information, whatever it might be.
We were told, this is what we're protecting you from. We're taking you out of this evil, wicked world.
Your reality narrows down because you're just only taking information from approved sources. Eventually, you aren't comparing ideas anymore. You're only consuming information that reinforces what the group wants to reinforce. And that's how you get like a sealed system, an echo chamber. All right, number 2 here on this list, relationship control. This is the soft isolation stage. They don't always say cut off your family. They say things like your family's toxic or they're threatened by your growth. These high control groups, very reminiscent of being in an abusive relationship, by the way, because the same thing happens in an abusive relationship.
Took my child. He twisted her memories, her mind.
Haven't seen her in over 3 years.
Relationships outside the group become framed as a problem. Isolation doesn't have to be physical. It can be emotional and social. If every disagreement becomes proof that the outsiders don't get it, then you stop bringing outsiders into your inner world. And with social media, which we'll touch back on, you can have this happening in the same house as the person you live in. And they'll just shut you out, even though you're living together. And that is the reality of what's happening nowadays. But anyways, once the group becomes your primary emotional home, the cost of leaving, it spikes. Like you feel like you're going to fall apart if you leave them. All right, number 3 on my list, behavior control. This is where you see rules creep. If you've ever done project management, we have this scope creep, the same sort of idea. But with the rules creep, you have to do more training, more volunteer obligations. You have to give them more money, more of your time, just more. And it ramps up slowly over time. And before you realize it creeps up on you. That's why the term is there. If the group can dominate your schedule, it dominates your attention. And if it dominates your attention, it dominates your identity as well. Number 4, emotional control. This is where the group starts using emotional leverage. They might say things like, after everything we've done for you, you're going to do this. Or another one, if you doubt, that's your trauma talking. Or if you feel uncomfortable, that's proof that it's working. Those last 2 are pretty common in a lot of spiritual communities as well. This is one of the most important tricks because it reframes discomfort as progress. So your internal system is going off trying to give you alarms that something's not wrong, something's not right, but it gets rewritten because of this. Instead of thinking this feels wrong, you end up thinking this is growth and it's normal, it's okay. Number 5 is the special language and identity rewrite. Words get redefined, labels become weapons as well. They'll say things like, you're awake now, but you were asleep before us. You're healed now, but without us, it's toxicity, or you were toxic before us. Now you know the truth versus propaganda. This matters because language shapes our thoughts. And if you control language, you control how people interpret reality. Even nowadays, we can see this stuff. A lot of people put a label of woke over top of everything as an example. And this is the awake asleep thing. Number 6, the enforcement ladder. Who corrects you when you step out of line? A lot of the control comes from the community. There's usually a ladder, such as the inner circle, trusted members, then regular members. And all along the ladder, different people will exert different levels of control. Different things such as there's public shaming, which is common in a lot of religious groups. Correction as well, which is a sort of punishment. You might also lose your status in the group or be frozen out. So you kind of feel like you're being punished and not able to have your family around you. So even if the leader isn't watching you, you're being watched by everyone else because the group trains everyone to police one another. The consequence of this type of cult is a loss of autonomy. You stop making choices freely. You start making choices that protect your standing inside the system. You are now convinced that leaving is impossible. You can't even imagine life outside the cult Because leaving isn't just leaving now. Leaving is losing out on everything. It's losing your friends, sometimes family as well, that are in the cult. Your identity, your support structure, your purpose in the world. It'll all be over. And you have to start over again with no one and nothing. And that scares people. And this is why people stay even when things escalate. And this is something too that I've pointed out to some of my friends as well, who they don't understand why some people would stay in a cult when they hear about children being S8. And it pretty much comes down to this, where they can't understand how to help themselves if they left, let alone their children. And they just get in this loop of fear and uncertainty. And it's really sad that it hits that point, but this is human psychology, and the cults know what they're doing when they're controlling people to this level. Now let's take a look at some case studies. And I'm pulling in a lot of case studies just to help you apply this to an example so you understand. Again, this is not a deep dive. I realize this. It's very high level. I just want to remind people, there has been past videos where I've touched on a case of some sort, and it was clearly not a deep dive, but people got upset that I didn't deep dive. We're not deep diving here. We're deep diving into what are the types of cults and some of the human psychology behind everything. That is what we're deep diving into today. But particular cases, that'll come later. Let's discuss a few examples of the high control cult. Just dropping in. While I'm editing here, I'm going to be doing a few of this. I'm changing the case studies a little bit. I'm going to pretty much just do one per chapter, because even with this video edited down, it's like 4 hours. I need to cut stuff as well. I really actually thought about this now, is that I want to put in an example where something doesn't turn into a cult but uses this ideology. So I'm going to do that as a voiceover here. We're going to take a look at the case study first, then I will talk about one that didn't turn out to be a cult as an example of the ideology in practice that didn't get corrupted. Although, of course, there are some of them where it's small organizations within a larger ideology may have gotten corrupted, but we'll talk about that when we get to them. So for high control groups, case study that I want to talk about is the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ and of the Latter-day Saints, aka Fundamentalist Mormons. So the FLDS is a fundamentalist offshoot that maintain polygamy as a religious practice, and for decades exercised heavy influence over insular communities, most famously along the Arizona and Utah border. Many of you may be familiar with the most famous one, Warren Jeff's cult. If you aren't familiar with it, there is a documentary on Netflix that is called Keep, Sweet, Pray, and Obey. I thought it was really well done, and I do believe that they covered off the majority of the stuff that they could cover. So I do recommend go check that out if you want to learn more about this particular FLDS cult. All right, let's dive into the ideology. What is the good idea, the beliefs that people have before everything got tainted? The FLDS ideology is a form of Mormon fundamentalism. It tries to preserve what it sees as the original restored LDS practices. Especially their focus is plural marriage. They consider it a religious requirement for the highest level of salvation. They really emphasize the absolute prophetic authority. So like essentially the man, the patriarch of the family and of the area, is sort of treated as like a interpreter of God, a prophet of God. And they thrive in a sort of insular community setup.
Matt Browning is a retired undercover detective who took down white supremacist groups and now serves as intel and infiltration of cults for law enforcement.
How do you think he got away with it for as long as he did?
He is a closed secretive society that because God told him to do it, he's not going to change.
They have a belief, which is the United Order or Law of Consecration. And it's the idea that members consecrate their property, labor, and resources to the church or / community to be managed and redistributed for the group's needs under religious authority. So they kind of function as a strange combination of like socialism and patriarchy, like almost like having a king leader. But I believe that the point is the ideology is really about family, community, being there for one another, takes a village kind of mindset. And as well with what they're doing with the plural marriages is supposed to, I guess, rise up the patriarch and the family to have better access to God and become the prophet. That's sort of the idea of some basis of their ideology and where it starts.
I think there's this idea that you are nothing without this prophet.
You should be praying that you will be given to a husband who will prove faithful to the end.
Now I want to discuss the techniques of how control was built and enforced. So the primary mechanism here isn't just belief, it's a leadership structure and a community system that can govern marriage, family life, and social status. FLDS dynamics are widely discussed as coercive because the control isn't abstract, it's baked into daily life. You live in it and your whole life is based around it. We can turn these techniques into a list of 3 things. Let's review that. Number 1, relationship control via spiritual authority. Leadership authority can extend into the most intimate parts of life. Who marries who belongs, who is worthy. Under the Warren Jeffs leadership, in particular, prosecutors alleged that he arranged marriages, including underage marriages. And he was later convicted in Texas for SA of minors. And because I did watch the Netflix documentary and they showed the ledger because they're trying to make sure that people, a lot of it was about inbreeding or something, unless I'm mixing up stories. Anyway, this is just off the top of my head. We're not going to deep dive into that. Number 2, social control and fear of expulsion.
How old are you? 11?
They're in a cult. Their brains are not their own.
High control groups often use belonging as their leverage. Compliance keeps you safe inside the community. Dissent risks being cut off from family and support.
An apostate is somebody who left the church, and a Gentile is somebody who never knew the church.
Basically, if you're an apostate, then you can't live among the priesthood people. None of your friends can talk to you anymore. Nobody can talk to you anymore. Basically, have to move away.
Does it mean that you'll go to hell?
Yeah, basically. Just not a good person. If you're an apostate, you can't have your salvation. You just lose everything, basically.
In communities where social life is tightly contained, that threat carries enormous weight. Can you imagine even your daily life having to start over? No family, no friends, no nothing, no job, and just being thrown out into a new country because that's what it feels like to them. And that's why they're so scared. Number 3, obedience culture. So the AP recently did a timeline summary that describes FLDS communities as being effectively controlled for decades. And it notes about Jeff in particular, his rise to leadership in 2002 and subsequent criminal case history. This matters because once a leader becomes sacred, accountability becomes nearly impossible from the inside. The group can interpret outside scrutiny not as protection, but as persecution. This also happened in a cult recently. I believe it's in Australia, and I believe there's a documentary on it on Amazon Prime.
We are the chosen ones. We are the people of God.
Cross this bridge and you've lost your soul. And that's the psychological prison.
1, 2, everybody smiling.
You don't join a cult. You get recruited.
This would be one of the worst ages for sin.
The women are there to serve the men, work, have babies.
Looking back, knowing what I know, yes, we were slaves.
If you control the wife, you control the husband. If you control both of them, then you've got the whole family.
This is the opportunity in history to get it right.
I've got a package here. It's got a phone. Stay safe.
There we go. Let's go.
To actually escape physically just feels impossible. But to escape psychologically, it actually is impossible.
And essentially their leader went to jail for CSA, but they saw it as the system trying to tear apart their community. And they don't understand that he was charged with anything, also because they don't allow news into their compound. So, that plays a big role too. Because from the outside, we live in a world where we have access to all information. We got to remember, from the outside, it looks obvious to us, but you got to think on the inside, they're a very controlled environment. That's why they don't understand that what's happening is wrong. A lot of them too were raised in this. So really don't understand that the outside world isn't like this. The consequences people associate with FLDS include coercive control, harm to minors, and in Jeff's case specifically, criminal convictions tied to SA of children. Most often, sadly, it's a lot of child marriage and CSA. And that tends to be the biggest, most popular thing amongst high control groups. I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, God, not to be nihilist here, but if we look at the Epstein list and the amount of billionaires and stuff and all the stories being told about all the billionaires that rule the world, it might be related to money and power. Maybe this is what happens. I don't know what's wrong with some people. Like, the world we're in is crazy right now. And I know me covering this topic during this time is a little bit crazy, but I really do kind of want to delve more into this. So anyway, enough with my rambling. I want to end the FLDS section on a more positive note of some things that ex-members are doing to help people who have left.
One of his ex-wives has returned after escaping to help other former wives heal from years of trauma.
I am Brielle Decker, the 65th ex-wife of polygamous cult leader Warren Jeffs. When I escaped, I went clear to Tennessee and I changed my name, my social, and was legally adopted. And then I came back to help people.
Warren Jeffs was sentenced to life in prison back in 2011, leaving behind his former Colorado City compound, a place where Brielle once lived.
So I went in and asked for this property. I felt like that it needed to become something that would benefit the community.
That's when the Short Creek Dream Center was born, a safe house and refuge for victims.
It's no longer known as Warren Jeffs' house, it's known as the Short Creek Dream Center.
The community has been rebuilding for over a decade, but there's still signs they have further to go. Where there once was pain and control, there's now hope and restoration.
So as I said at the beginning of this, I am actually going to be adding what would be a good example of this ideology that didn't turn into a cult. So it's just going to be short. I'm going to keep it pretty simple on each one. For this particular chapter, we're talking about high control groups, and they tend to be ones that are religion-based, most often related to something with the Bible. So in my opinion, I've decided that the good example is religion itself. Not every church turns into a cult. A lot of churches do help people. Not every Christian becomes something like this. A lot of Christians are good people and they follow what the Bible says about helping their fellow man, loving their fellow man. So I believe that the good example is the times where religion is working as designed and not being taken advantage of by a bad actor in the system. But as you watch this, let me know what you think would be a good example or any other feedback on this. So now with each chapter type, where each chapter is going to be a different type of cult, I want to end them all with like a social media layer to discuss how the modern world now works with these cults, or how cults work with the modern world. So if we apply modern evolution to high control groups, you don't need to physically be together now. They can start just with content. It can be like live streams, free workshops, healing journeys, algorithmic funnels, paid tiers for different levels of closeness to the leader or whatever. And there's like inner circle communities as well. And these are all framed as safe spaces too. So what happens is the group gets built into layers. It goes like public content, community identity, private access, then escalating demands. The enforcement stage often shows up as things like mass reporting, brigading, silencing critics, controlling the narrative in real time. I mean, some people even will turn to like doxing, threats, and blackmail as well. And there may or may never be a compound. Sometimes they do build them as well. And sometimes that does end up being the end stage. But the algorithm is the beginning to all of this. So now that we've talked about the classic high control like cult structure, we're going to look at a variation where everything gets turbocharged by one ingredient, a deadline. Chapter 2, Doomsday Apocalypse Cults. Apocalyptic thinking is a pressure cooker, because once a belief system adds a deadline, the world is ending, the reckoning is coming, the reset is imminent, everything then changes. Urgency overrides skepticism. Sacrifice starts to feel rational. Doubt starts to feel dangerous. And I want to emphasize as well, the danger isn't just they believe something dramatic. The danger is that it's a ticking clock. It gives leaders and groups a built-in excuse to escalate their activity. In other words, deadlines make control easier. Let's, though, walk back a little bit. Let's talk about the ideology of how these things begin. So apocalyptic movements, they begin with the human need to make sense of chaos. Across history, people have used end times or reset ideas to explain instability, create moral urgency. These frameworks can motivate preparedness, community support, and ethical reflection. People especially are feeling powerless or overwhelmed by the world around them. These things can really hit hard. Apocalyptic frameworks offer something psychologically comforting. A chaotic world becomes a story with a plot, and a plot has villains. A plot has a timeline. A plot has a mission, and being in on it feels like safety, because certainty, any type of certainty, can feel better than ambiguity. This is why apocalyptic thinking shows up so often in social instability. It's a meaning machine. It makes fear feel organized. This is why we just recently saw that rapture talk thing that happened.
And I think it's really hitting me that we are going home. And I am so sad for those who are not going with us.
The shift from idea to cult happens when the belief stops being a way to interpret the world and becomes the only acceptable truth. Let's talk about the techniques. How does urgency turn into a control? So apocalyptic groups, they tend to build control through a pretty consistent toolkit. Yes, more lists. So number 1, acting now. This is the core aspect of it. The deadline isn't just a belief, it's a lever. If time is running out, then you can't carefully evaluate, consult outsiders, slow down, or hesitate, or even doubt what's going on. Also, you can't leave, because if you leave, you're not going to be saved, right? So doubt will become framed as negligence. They might say, if you don't commit, you're risking everything. And this is where people will accept controls they would normally reject, because it's framed as an emergency protocol. And when people are in an emergency state, they don't really think through their choices fully.
We're going to give away houses. We're going to give away cars. We're giving away different things. We're just giving everything away because we won't be here. We're leaving this earth.
Guys, I'm saying goodbye to my car. I've had for 5 years. But she's going to go. I won't need her beyond September because I'm going home.
All right, number 2, isolation. Isolation doesn't always start off as cutting off your family. It usually starts off a little bit slower. In this particular Doomsday cult kind of subclassification, they might start off with things like, don't talk to people who mock your belief. Don't talk to people who are mocking this. Also, they won't understand what's going on. They're part of the deception. They're trying to pull you down. They're trying to stop your ascension or whatever it might be. If you convince someone outsiders are dangerous or contaminated, you don't need chains. You get voluntary isolation. And once someone is socially isolated, the group becomes the only mirror they have, the only feedback loop. All right, number 3, only we know the truth. The group becomes the authority on reality, then they start in on the rhetoric. And they'll reinforce the whole thing, like the news is lying to you. Experts are compromised. Critics are agents. Doubt is weakness. Questions are temptation. So this belief system becomes self-sealing. Everything outside the group is reinterpreted as proof that the group is right. And number 4, enemy narratives. So with these type of groups, they like to assign a villain to fear, such as the government, the media, the system, dark entities, NPCs. The details vary, but the function's still the same. It creates cohesion through threat. The enemy explains why you're struggling. The enemy explains why outsiders disagree with you. The enemy justifies the group's extreme measures that they wish to take. All right, number 5. Failed prophecies reframed. This is one of the most important mechanics to explain because it's where people say, how could they not notice that they were wrong? But this is how the system protects itself. When a prophecy fails, the movement usually doesn't collapse. It just patches itself. You'll hear, we misinterpreted the timeline. Some people might even say it did happen, but it was on a spiritual level, or it's invisible. Some people might say that they delayed it through prayer or action, which is a very high control thing to turn into as well, because then you'll be reinforced. Also, they might say this is a test of your faith. And there's another big one now is that we skip to a different timeline. which I'll end up repeating this on other cults too. So essentially, the belief becomes a moving target, and the more someone has sacrificed, the more motivated they are to accept this patch, because admitting it was false costs too much. Like how many people on Rapture Talk that still believe that it's coming, that it was just a different day or something that was a mistake.
September 23rd came and went.
Much later.
I don't know. Let me see. I don't know.
Awkward. While some Christians deleted their videos or privated their accounts out of embarrassment, others held out as Joshua scrambled to explain his miscalculation.
When you cross over straight from this Feast of Trumpets to our Gregorian calendar, it will put you on the 7th and the 8th of October.
Oh, it's the calendar that's wrong, not you. Of course. After the second prediction failed, Joshua pushed the date back yet again to the 16th of October. Through all of this, Rapture Talk continued to post.
Number 6, purity and escalating commitment. Apocalyptic systems often push members towards increasing purity or readiness. More rules, sacrifices, separation, proof of devotion. And because the deadline makes everything feel urgent, escalation feels justified at times. So, what are some consequences here? Fear becomes the glue. And fear makes people accept controls that they would normally reject. Be like isolation, obedience, financial sacrifice, surrendering your personal autonomy, things like that. And the most dangerous part is this. Apocalyptic belief doesn't just warn you, it actually rewires your decision making. Because if you genuinely believe that the end is imminent, then normal life and choices become meaningless. Why save money? Why maintain relationships? Why plan a future? Why question leadership? This is why we saw things on TikTok for that whole thing. People were selling their cars. There's one that I saw the video. I wasn't sure if it was true or not. Lady tried to give away her children because she thought she would be raptured without them or something.
I don't know if any of you saw this video of the woman giving her kid to CPS because she thinks the rapture is going to happen. But that is actually my neighbor, and now she realizes the rapture isn't going to happen. She's freaking out, trying to get her kid back.
And after some digging, the original video was found.
So I have to come on here and say that I willingly gave up custody of my 6 kids to CPS because of the rapture. Before you guys come for me in the comments, you have to think about this logically. When the rapture comes and I get lifted up, who's going to take care of my children? CPS. I'm honestly just preparing. I want to be a responsible parent, and that's why I did what I did. You can call me selfish if you want, but I call that faith-based planning.
Like, these people truly believe, right? Okay, let's talk about some case study examples of this type of cult. Probably first came to your mind, Heaven's Gate. It's like one of the most famous apocalyptic cults. It's most famous because their apocalyptic framing escalated into catastrophic harm.
One of America's most extreme cults, Heaven's Gate, ended in the tragic deaths of 39 people.
It's the cult. It's the cult of cults. It's the cult of truth.
So I want to talk about carefully as well, because it involves real deaths, real family, and real grief. All these cases really do. But I do just want to, with all of this, recognize all the lives that were lost because of this. Whether it's Heaven's Gate or Jonestown or whatever it might be, a lot of people didn't necessarily have their choice. As well, a lot of family and friends still survive. This wasn't that long ago, so there's still like generational trauma going on. I feel like it shouldn't really be used as content fodder, especially shouldn't be like sensationalized or given false narrative on. So, and I know this is me sidetracking on it as well, but there's a lot of problem with this as in the paranormal community and in true crime communities as well, where the stories aren't being told accurately. And I think it is really important for us to remember that the people that survive traumatic victim loss like this, like it's happened to me. If you have someone in your life and they left you in a traumatic way, a sudden traumatic way like this, it hits you with a different type of grief that I can't fully explain, but like it causes more damage long term. So when people are doing YouTube videos or ghost hunts and taking advantage of this, they're not thinking that there might be family or friends watching YouTube that come across that, and that can re-victimize them as well. Because surviving family and friends, my point is surviving family and friends are victims too. But this is sort of my want as to like why I want to actually start covering some true crime, because I'm just seeing so much misinformation out there. And just to make it clear for those of you watching, I hope you understand what I am criticizing is people who are unethically using these stories to create content fodder, and they're sensationalizing and making up things in these stories. It's one thing to report on a story with factual information. It's another to add in your own narratives and don't do proper research or just lie completely, all to make it more palatable for the audience. But let's talk some more about this. So with Heaven's Gate, let's talk about the setup. Heaven's Gate wasn't just a belief system, it was total worldview with a mission identity. Members weren't simply followers, they were participants in a narrative about transformation, escape, and a higher destination.
All of them convinced that this one man knows how to perfect them and take them through the gates of heaven on a UFO.
And like many of these apocalyptic doomsday movements, they offered certainty, meaning, specialness as well, belonging, and a clear us versus them separation.
Their haircuts exactly alike. Baggy clothes, no gender. And with every move, they fix their adoring gaze on one man in the room. They call him Doe.
Marshall Herb Applewhite, Doe, is basically their god.
A god who wants them to erase gender, sexuality, private thoughts.
Heaven's Gate was so extreme. A total attack on individuality, humanity, sexuality.
They created one of the toughest indoctrination programs I've encountered in 30-some years of doing this. They had rules about dressing, they had rules about talking, they had rules about sex. It was rules upon rules upon rules.
So what are some of the techniques used here? A defining feature is the separation from mainstream life and an inward-facing worldview. When a group becomes your primary source of meaning and outsiders are framed as unable to understand, that's how the reality becomes sealed. And apocalyptic movements often intensify that by framing the body, the world, and ordinary life as something to transcend. Something temporary, even contaminated, like the body might be contaminated, for example.
3 to beam up. Energize.
39 to beam up. Thank you.
She goes, 39 to beam up. You know, and that, I think that just said it all. I felt so sorry for her.
So what makes Heaven's Gate especially relevant is how the deadline component interacts with belief. Once there's a window of time, a moment, a chance, and so forth, hesitation becomes framed as missing your only opportunity. Heaven's Gate is a perfect example of this because they were trying to catch this comet, so they had to do it. So there's no questioning it. You can't question it or you're going to miss the timing of it. If this is the only door out, then you don't debate, you just comply with what's needed.
Did they have real choice?
No, they have what I call bounded choice. They live in this bounded reality. They live in a closed world.
There's something you should know as these people praise Doe and thank him for showing them the way. On the other side of the camera, Doe, there, listening.
The happiest day of my life. Most of them said things that were mimicking almost word for word what Applewhite had said.
This world has become so corrupt.
So corrupt. So it really showed the dependency on him.
As long as I exist, I have free will.
But I am doing this of my own free will. My own free will.
I say no, they didn't have any free will.
So the consequences here. Well, the tragic outcome that many of us are pretty familiar with. In 1997, it was a mass death.
Tonight with a strange side of the 30s. It's very strange.
March 26, 1997, America reels at one of the most bizarre stories in the history of cults and religion.
Are
grand total to 39.
39 people.
And the lesson isn't that these people were irrational. The lesson is how a sealed worldview plus isolation plus a deadline, this can move a group toward extreme acts that feel coherent inside the belief system itself. Us externally look at it and we think, that's crazy, how could they do that? But we forget, like, inside these groups, the thinking is different.
Witnesses start to come out of the shadows to talk with us about our central question: how did wonderful people so much like our friends, our family, end up ensnared in a cult? And who were these followers before they walked through his door? Dreamers, high achievers, a valedictorian and presidential scholar. She's lonely and follows them to the end. The brother of a famous heroine on Star Trek. The son of a prominent Connecticut family who just wanted to be part of a commune in nature. He ends up giving them his trust fund and his life. The former Army paratrooper.
I just want to say how thankful I am to Doe and T for helping me and taking me under their wing, and all my classmates have been so great to me and all the problems I've caused.
The youngest member of the group, age 25. The oldest at 71, a mother of 3.
My thoughts in these last hours are only of joy and wonder at the thought of going home.
Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Since I've been in the class, I've learned the answers to all of those.
And couldn't be happier about what we're about to do.
So many people vanishing into a cult, while their parents, children, lovers are desperate to find them.
And my parents ran the Heaven's Gate cult. My wife was Yvonne.
What happened to my brother?
Is he still living? I had no idea.
This was the love of my life.
The gentleman said I'm from the coroner's office in San Diego. So I knew immediately why he called and that all hope was lost.
This sense of betrayal and literally asking the question to myself, sorry to the moment.
I think, what a waste. All of those 39 people, what a waste. What a waste of talent and beauty, because they were good. They had good hearts. These people were not malicious.
It's devastating to this very day.
I just wish that she could have found something worth living for here.
It ends with the fade to black.
Thank you very much.
It ends also with silence.
Heaven's Gate is a reminder that the scariest systems aren't always the ones that start out looking violent. They're the ones that start out offering meaning, then gradually reframe reality until extreme choices feel like logical devotion.
There were 38 murders and 1 suicide.
I know that this is a lot of heavy material. I do always try to put focus on the victims now when we're looking at this kind of stuff. So as I'm speaking here, I found this People article, and it actually does a summary of each of the 38 people, and there's sort of a mini bio of each one. I'm going to scroll through it as I'm talking here, and you can feel free to pause it. I will, of course, link everything below as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to try to also show a positive example of this type of ideology being used that didn't turn into a cult. These are just going to be brief and like a thought exercise, and feel free to comment below and let me know your thoughts. I thought about it for a little bit, and I think that the positive example of this ideology, this doomsday ideology, is maybe the preppers. I have seen a lot of things happen where there's emergencies that happen, like there was the flooding over by the, I can't remember which state, but it was the Appalachia, forests and stuff. That was like a couple years ago. And there were some other instances. There's times also when we were out of electricity, there was that blackout. It's just over those like big events. It tends to be those doomsday preppers that are the ones that come to help people. Backup, diesel, whatever it might be. They have usually a generator, they usually have supplies and everything too, and they're ready for anything. And I have seen them do a lot of good for communities, and a lot of these people do not end up in a cult. They just are a doomsday prepper as like an interest or a hobby. But definitely it does have a really high opportunity of turning into a cult, just in the nature of the thought pattern with it. But I have seen plenty that don't end up in a cult, and they've given back to people when they were in dire need. Oh, and a side tangent to that too is I have seen a lot of them turn into this new homesteading thing. There's like a bunch of content around it as well, but people are buying a plot of land and building a homestead instead to kind of escape from the modern world in a sense. Now, let's talk about the social media aspect of this, how this would apply in today's day. Online spaces can manufacture apocalyptic urgency without any physical group, and they can do it very fast. You see it constantly in different packaging. People will say different things like, oh, the reset is coming, collapse is imminent, the storm is coming, ascension is happening any day now, the truth will be revealed soon, different things like that. And like I said before, we had that TikTok rapture talk thing that happened recently. These deadline sort of doomsday stories, they perform well. Fear performs well. Certainty performs well. Secret knowledge, especially on TikTok and Instagram Reels, performs really well. So social media turns apocalypse into this huge content engine. In this type of environment and with this type of thinking, there's constant updates, constant signs, decoding, puzzle solving, things of that nature. There's constant spikes in urgency too. And when everyone truly believes, and they're all talking about it, they're all feeding off of each other. And it just creates huge algorithmic, effect with it. Such as, and I said I would say it later, I've said it a bajillion times, Rapture Talk, which is around September 2025. It was a lot of North Americans, like most North Americans who were seriously believing and pushing this Rapture Talk stuff on TikTok. They didn't even know that this started from a prophecy of a pastor in South Africa.
God took me to see the future, and then he brought me back. In a throne room, I see Jesus sitting on his throne, and I could hear him very loud and clear. I am coming soon. He says to me, on the 23rd and the 24th, 2025, I will come to take my church.
There's a date.
There is a date.
And that's the thing about algorithms, the brain rot of short form content. You don't need charismatic leaders in a compound. Again, you don't even need a leader. You can just maintain this without a leader. The algorithm keeps it cooking and boiling. The algorithm keeps pushing it. The algorithm, I guess, becomes like, the propaganda machine, right? In the old model, the end times were preached like once a week. In the online model, it's like every hour, every minute sometimes too. Social media can be a dangerous thing when we're looking at doomsday cults. All right, so now that we've covered these sort of deadline belief systems, we're going to move into something bigger and more flexible, and that is the cult of personality. Because sometimes ideology isn't the center, sometimes the person becomes the ideology. If you want to check out the next one, this is where we dive into cult of personalities and leaderless cults. And this will be available right away, and I will link it here. Yes, I'm doing it a little bit differently because I'm trying out an idea that people are saying to help with the algorithm issue going on with 2026 here. So again, if you guys wouldn't mind liking, commenting is very important. So please do leave your comments below. Commenting helps us the most, and hyping a video as well. And I'll just lastly end this with thank you to all the members and patrons. All of your support is greatly appreciated, especially when I am struggling to get everything out for you guys. All right, I'm going to end the video here. Have a good one. Please do check out the next one. It's available right now. Okay.